Hey guys, all right, so this one's been heavy on my spirit. So, why just talk to him can be the worst advice after emotional abuse. One of the hardest things to explain to people is this, right? If you've never lived through an emotionally abusive relationship, your advice usually comes from a healthy place. And I understand that. You think that conflict gets resolved by communication. You think that misunderstandings get cleared by talking. And usually it would. You think honesty fixes everything, right? Yeah, that sounds great. And in healthy relationships, that's usually true. But in emotionally abusive relationships, don't operate by healthy standards, rules. That's why one of the most painful things someone can say is, just talk to them. Oh, knife in the heart. Because what you see as a simple conversation, the other person experiences walking into a minefield, getting ready to blown up like a soldier in Afghanistan. Every sentence measured. Every word gets rehearsed. Every text rewritten like 5 times. And I've lived it. It all goes to the court, to the judge. Look at him. He's erratic. He can't have a normal conversation. I'm like, okay. People are trying to just survive these people. And if I say this, how will it be twisted? If I defend myself, will it be called defensive? If I stay quiet, will that become proof that I'm guilty? It's crazy how these people operate. If I show emotion, will I be called unstable? For sure. If I don't show emotion, will I be accused of not caring? For sure. God, I can't tell you how many times this happens to me. It's like, just reality gets twisted. And you begin to realize there is never a right answer. There is never a right answer. The rules change depending on what serves the other person's narrative in that moment. And a lot of people don't see that. They only see the person avoiding the conversation. And I don't want anything to do with these people. They don't see the dozens, maybe hundreds of conversations that ended with confusion, blame, guilt, or shame, or somehow becoming the villain, like, for bringing something up that hurt them. Like, eventually your nervous system just starts making the decisions for you. It says, don't engage. And, like, it's because there's no win there, right? And you're not even trying to avoid accountability, but the experience has taught you that speaking up has often made things worse. People who haven't lived through that will judge you. They'll say, communication is key. I'm an expert communicating. And like, communication is key. And they're right? When both people are genuinely trying to understand each other. Communication only works when truth matters more than winning. When accountability matters more than control. But you're dealing with a controlling, manipulative person on the other side. So when both people are willing to hear uncomfortable things without turning them to ammunition. Without those things, communication stops being connection. And it starts becoming a battlefield. Again, the minefield. Like, gonna get blown up by just stepping wrong. And here's another thing that people don't understand. Trauma doesn't just change your memories. It changes your expectations. You stop expecting to be heard. You stop expecting to be heard. You start expecting to be misunderstood. You stop expecting empathy. You start preparing for attacks. And they're coming. So that's why even sending a text can raise your heart rate, right? I get the heebie-jeebies doing it. Someone from the outside looking in says, you're overthinking. No. Because everything gets used against you. Your brain is just remembering. Your brain is trying to protect you from a pattern that's already experienced. And that's just how your nervous system works, And then this is why I wish more people would stop giving advice before they understand. Instead of saying just call them, you got to ask, what happens when you do? Instead of saying, you're probably both at fault, ask, what have you already tried? Instead of assuming that they're exaggerating, ask, what makes those conversations so difficult? Woo! What makes those conversations so difficult? Because those questions matters, right? Because communication is something powerful. And I want to understand before I form an opinion. And that's one of the greatest gifts that you can give another human being. And the truth is, most people don't need someone immediately to solve their problem. I definitely don't. They just need someone to feel safe enough to even tell them the truth. Safety changes everything. People heal in places where they don't have to defend their reality. And, where they aren't interrupted. It's a good one. Where they aren't told that they're crazy. I mean, how many times do I hear that? Where they aren't immediately challenged before they finish even a sentence. And sometimes healing begins the moment someone finally says, I believe that this has been painful for you. Know something. That doesn't require taking sides. And it doesn't require hating the other person. Just like a certain level of understanding. And it doesn't even require you to know every detail. Like, it just simply acknowledges a person's experience. And that's what matters. That's, understanding someone's pain isn't the same thing as approving every decision that they made. Woo! I know that's right. You can have compassion while still believing in accountability. And you can encourage healthy boundaries while encouraging personal growth. Those ideas can coexist together, right? If someone you care about tells you that they're being emotionally hurt, slow down, resist the urge to become the expert, and resist the urge to solve every problem in 5 minutes. Lead with curiosity instead of conclusions. Ask more. Ask more questions than you answer, right? Because sometimes one thoughtful question does more healing than 100 pieces of advice. And if you're the person who's lived through this, I hope this finds you. The fact that you're cautious doesn't automatically mean you're bitter. The fact that you're careful doesn't automatically mean that you're difficult. And I understand how they try to paint you like that, but sometimes caution is what happens after trust has been broken many, many times. Healing doesn't happen overnight. Learning to trust your own voice again takes time. And learning that healthy conversations can actually exist takes time. They do exist. Healthy people don't make you afraid to speak. Healthy people don't make you rehearse every sentence. Healthy people don't make you question your reality every time you walk away from a conversation. Healthy relationships aren't perfect, but they are safe. That's what both people need. So if you remember anything from this video, remember this, right? Before you tell someone what they should do, ask them, what have they been through? And before you judge their silence, understand what speaking has cost them. Everything. And before you pick a side, seek the truth. I can't believe I have to explain this to adults. And before you give advice, make sure you made the person feel safe enough to tell a story. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't having a perfect answer. It's creating a space where someone finally feels heard. And we'll leave it at that. Big amen on that one. You're no stay dangerous.